This video is going to be about health, immunity, and your ability to survive the COVID crisis. This channel is mostly about cycling, especially the way it concerns small wheel, compact and foldable bicycles, scooters, and the like. If you are interested in such topics, you should subscribe. This current video is going to be somewhat unusual, but I think health and the immune system ties in very closely with the hobby of cycling. I am not a licensed medical doctor or nurse, so this is not legally speaking medical advice. I'm just sharing my opinions and my experience in this area. What qualifies me to talk about this is partly that I am a COVID-19 survivor. I contracted the virus on a flight back from Singapore to New York in December of 2019 and was able to survive without medical supervision just by using natural methods. In addition, I've been using face masks for a decade, and I also have roughly 35 years of experience with various sterilization technologies that can be used to sterilize air or water and prevent viral transmissions. I do not see COVID as a genuine pandemic because when I look at the Black Fever or Black Death, for example, which occurred centuries ago, mostly in Europe, that fever, which consisted of 3 distinct strains according to contemporary science, would have killed as many as a third of some of the biggest cities in southern Europe. COVID is nothing like that when it comes to severity. Or you could consider the Spanish flu, roughly a century ago at the end of World War I. Back then, the flu killed almost entirely the healthiest in the population. It killed young, healthy people with perfect immune systems. COVID is very different from that. COVID targets almost invariably people with serious pre-existing conditions such as cancer, asthma, diabetes, and the like. In this situation, the government's actions have been highly questionable, to say the least. I have seen some wealthy people advising the population on what to do without having any medical credentials of their own. I have seen huge chunks of this planet placed under limited house arrest, and I have seen a good number of police atrocities around the world. A considerable chunk of the population has been inoculated with chemical substances which are often not approved by any government or are flat out illegal. Some of these jabs have resulted in horrible side effects, including death. I'm showing you a map I downloaded from the CDC website. This is as of October of 2021. The darker the color, the greater the COVID infection rates. And if you compare a country, for example, such as Sweden or Belarus or Mexico, which never had much of any lockdowns, to the United States, which is partially still under lockdown, you notice that the US has a much higher case count, even though it had lockdowns and still has them here and there. Another case in point is a map which shows Israel, a country which has a whopping 90% inoculation rate. Compare the infection rates of Israel to a bunch of other countries in Europe, even in North Africa, and you'll see that even though they have the highest or one of the highest inoculation rates as of late 2021, they also have some of the highest case counts in the world. So if lockdowns and inoculations and government terror did not work to stop the crisis, what works? What works is what has always worked, which is your natural God-given immune system. That is the immune system I used to recover and survive an infection, and that is my recommendation for you to use as well. People with exceptional health survivability and immunity have existed throughout the ages, and I would like to share some of them. These are the people I like the best, and I have tried to study their lives and what they did to achieve what they achieved. In this case, the first example is going to be a Chinese man who died in 1933. His name was Ching-Yuen, and researchers debate whether he lived for 200 years or 2.5 centuries. Nobody knows for sure. What we know is that his last wife, his widow, was his 24th. In other words, the other 23 wives he married previously all died at the end of their lives out of natural causes, and this man survived them all. He also fathered 200 children. So probably he lived a lot longer than 100 years, and what he achieved is without parallel as far as I can tell. He was not big on exercise. You can see that he did not lift weights. He had no gym membership. He also did not eat processed food. In fact, he didn't eat much of anything. He ate mostly vegetable matter and plants which he himself harvested in the wild. So by today's standard, he would be described as a sort of a raw vegan person, and it certainly worked for him very well. I'm sure there were some other lifestyle aspects to his longevity. He was an herbalist and an expert on plants. I don't think he ate any animals at all, and definitely processed food did not exist back then. So he would be the first example that I would recommend to study, although we don't know enough about him. Somebody we know a lot more about was Luigi Cornaro. Cornaro was from Florence, from the north of Italy, and he lived in the 16th century. Most people, he believed, he died at the age of 102, although some people claim he only lived to 98, which to my mind is an academic question. For all practical purposes, he made it to be a centenarian. What's interesting about him is that he was considered to be of weak constitution and was dying sometime into early middle age, and most of his doctors told him that he was going to live for maybe a few more months and he had no chance of recovering. But one of the doctors encouraged him to limit his calories and to live a more regular, more restrained lifestyle. He implemented those ideas and amazingly recovered and established this system which he put down into a book. He wrote the famous classic about the sober life, as he called it, and lived to about 100 years of age. I don't know, I think he was married. He was not into exercise. His system was based mostly on caloric restriction. But we know, based on conversion of the units he gave us, there were no calories back in the 16th century, so he's only talking about the weight of food that he ate. He ate roughly 14 to 1500 calories a day, and he believed in portioning it into really small portions. So he was a fan of the many small meals a day rather than the currently popular 1 or 2 big meals. And he considered it very important to limit the size of meals throughout the day. He did not fast. I'm not aware of any exercise, and I don't think he did any taxing physical labor either. So his survival system was simply to eat less. The food he ate was kind of old-fashioned. He ate some meat, but not a lot. He ate some bread, and he ate soup, and he liked to drink wine every day. In fact, he drank quite a bit by today's standards, but not to be a drunkard. Dr. Stanley Bass lived up to age 95, and he basically took the original concepts of Luigi Cornaro from the 16th century, and as a medical doctor he refined them into a system that can be applied by anybody. His life, almost having made it to be a centenarian, is an example that anybody can take these principles and live for a long time, and not just to live long, but also to have a healthy life. He did this small meal system that Cornaro introduced in low calories, but he refrained from meat based on the scientific data that he reviewed. Meat eating is really not a good idea. He did believe in eating some animal proteins, and he was a vegetarian who ate some high quality dairy, but mostly plants and some fruit. His work is highly recommended. He still has a website, and there is even a video interview on him posted on YouTube. Clarence Bass is a lawyer and part-time bodybuilder, a natural bodybuilder, you could say. He acquired recognition decades ago when he won contests with his amazingly low body fat level. His body fat was tested to be 2.5%, which is very hard to reproduce for anybody. And he has been around lifting even into his 80s. If you look at his older pictures, more recent pictures, he's not as buffed as he was when he was in his 40s or 50s, but he's still exceptionally fit for a person as old as he is. He eats an almost vegetarian diet. He does eat fish and anything that comes out of water. That's called a pescatarian. But for the most part, he focuses on vegetables and fruit. He believes in regular training almost daily, but not very hard, not to go all out every day. I think he lifts really heavy only once or twice a week. He has written several books, and I have read several of them. I highly recommend him. Based on what I have learned from these men, I also live on a neo-vegetarian diet. The foundation of it is the green smoothie or green juice. It's not really a juice because I do not remove the pulp. This is vegetables pulverized in a blender, and I put some fruit into it, some root vegetables such as garlic or ginger. What you see here is a typical green smoothie that I would drink every day. A whole salad full of vegetable is in just one glass. Based on research that I have seen, the amount of nutrients the body can absorb this way is roughly 6 times as much as you could absorb from a salad. So in other words, if you just chopped up the vegetables and ate them in the form of a salad, you would be absorbing roughly 1/6 the nutrients that you can absorb from a smoothie or a juice like this one. In addition to the green juice, I do eat some legumes and some very high quality organic dairy here and there, but not necessarily every day. And on occasion, maybe once a month, I will have my only red meat favorite, really the only land animal meat I eat these days, which is meat from high quality Spanish pigs. These are Ibérico pigs that are cultivated on natural soil. They eat all kinds of wild grasses and acorn, just as they did 500 years ago. This is really expensive stuff. It's shipped straight from Spain into the US, but it's totally worth it, and I only do this maybe once a month or once every other month. This is kind of the stuff I grew up with in Central Europe, where people eat a lot of salamis and sausages, so I kind of enjoy it. You don't really have to eat it. You can totally survive without ever touching meat from land animals, especially red meat. But just for honesty's sake, I do confess that I eat it once in a while. The exercise I do for the most part, obviously, is riding a bicycle. I ride between 15 to 100 miles a week, so quite a bit. I do have an electric assist, but I usually run it on a low level, and so I do get some exercise, and I do lose quite a bit of calories when I ride. In addition to that, I do lift weights, but I don't believe in lifting heavy weights. I've had my injuries when I was younger, when I tried to force myself. So now I am following the protocol laid down in this book, The Great Body. I'm giving the link below. I think you should get the book. This is a phenomenal system. It uses just a couple of sets of light dumbbells, and it's basically originating from the ancient world. This is what the ancient Greeks and Romans used to train for fighting or just for health and longevity. It's a very simple system, very easy to learn and to do. You don't need a gym membership. You can do this at home, and it builds a very healthy and lean body, unlike the kind of sick-looking, professional steroid-taking professional bodybuilder bodies, which look like a grotesque rotisserie chicken to me, and really not something that I would associate with health. In fact, if you look at the health of some of the big name bodybuilders, a lot of these guys had serious surgeries like coronary bypass surgery, which Arnold Schwarzenegger had, and several of them have died in their 40s or even earlier. This is how bad it is, taking all those supplements, eating too much protein, and lifting way too heavy. This is all I have done to build an immune system that could fight off COVID, which I survived at the age of 55 with no medication at all. I highly recommend this system, and I'm providing a bunch of links below, which you should check out. The only addition I would add at the end is the ozonizer or ozone air filter. I have been using this stuff for the last 35 years. For the most part, people buy them because they eliminate odors. If you have a especially stinky room or kitchen or toilet, this is very effective. The way it kills smells is by burning all organics in air. And just as it kills stinky stuff, it also kills the COVID virus as well as all other bacteria and viruses it can get to. These machines are safe, they are really cheap. The unit I'm showing here is less than $100, and you can see on this table that they can sterilize a huge volume of interior space very quickly. Within hours they kill out all the smells, they kill everything. If most offices and indoor spaces used ozone sterilization, people would not need masks, people would not have any kind of a flu. Imagine the amount of money companies could save from not having employees take time off during the winter because they are getting the flu. Not necessarily just COVID, but any kind of flu. It's bad to get any kind of flu, and any kind of flu can kill you. I have personally known people who have been killed by regular flu viruses, not just COVID. So I think this is something to look into, especially if you work in an office. This is all I have to say about the COVID virus. It's up to you if you want to take the jab, if you want to try the natural route and rely on natural immunity. I am living proof that natural immunity works, but ultimately this is your life, it's your future. It's up to you to decide whatever you want to do. Feel free to check out the links, to subscribe, hit the like button, whatever. I'll be back with the next video soon enough.